I first want to hear from our sponsor, Quadrascope. So Jose from Quadrascope will say a few words just introducing their longevity VC.
Thank you. Hello?
We'll be doing some audio adjustments live, mid-program, so
perfect. Well,
you have to get pretty close.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Longevity Global, for organizing these kinds of events. We are Quadrascope. We are a longevity-focused venture capital fund. We're local, and we invest in a broad range of technologies, developing different modalities that allow you to prevent and treat age-related diseases. And we are happy to connect with anyone interested in the ecosystem. And thank you everyone for coming here, and I'm excited to hear about this panel. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, one other sponsor is the people that provide this beautiful venue for us tonight. So I want to welcome Renée to say a few words about SVB, Silicon Valley Bank.
All right, thanks everyone. Super excited to have you guys in our space. I consider myself so fortunate to come work here every day and have these views. Yeah, we're honestly love to be kind of the hub of Boston's ecosystem. We host events here weekly, whether it's about climate tech or fintech. Tonight's probably the first age longevity tech event, so super excited about that. And really looking forward to just getting to know this community better. Personally, my role at SVB is I'm responsible for our pre-Series A startup banking portfolio in the Boston, New England area. And really what that means is we have our banking package, which is fee-free. We try to make it as easy as possible for startups to just address their operational banking needs. But where my team and I spend most of our time is actually connecting founders to the broader Boston ecosystem, helping them raise capital, helping them meet mentors, angel investors, even generate some commercial traction, introducing them to talent. We really like to say, we just want to act as kind of super connectors in your corner as a founder. And personally, I've been through the startup journey at a Boston-based company that raised rounds of venture funding and then was eventually acquired by Capital One. So it's a path that I've walked personally, and I love to just empathize and even just hear founders vent. For me, that's super exciting. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Really excited to learn from the panelists and learn from all of you this evening. Thanks.
Hi, so I'm Justin. I am one of the people that helps run the broader Longevity Global organization. We have 7 chapters around the world. And what we do is basically support the longevity community. We try to bring together entrepreneurs and investors and academics together in the same space and create events like these to educate people and get people talking to each other. We've been doing this for, I think, 4 years now. I've been running the Boston chapter for a year, and we've had 5 or 6 events so far. We're also planning a 2-day summit in June with a pitch competition, so keep an eye out for that. I encourage everyone to sign up to become a member on longevitygl.org. And yeah, I think that's it. Kate?
Great. Excellent. Well, so first, a huge thanks to Longevity Global and especially Justin, Christina, and Veronica, my fearless co-organizers, for helping make tonight's event happen. I think Justin and I actually met at an age tech event. How about now? I know, I turned one off, but still. Nope, it's turned. A technical difficulty, isn't there? Now they're, oh no, now they're, all right. Am I good now? All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So Justin and I met at an AgeTech event, I don't know, probably 3-4 months ago, and got to talking about the fact that sort of there's this AgeTech community in Boston and a longevity community in Boston, and why is it that we're not partnering more? Why is it that we're not co-hosting more of these events? We're really two sides of the same coin. And so as we got to talking, we sort of said, hey, let's try to get the communities together and see if we can get people talking across some of these spaces. So that was really kind of the impetus for organizing tonight's event. So it's delightful to see such a mixed group of folks here. So thank you for being here. A special thanks to our panelists, to our event sponsors, to our hosts at SVB, without whom this beautiful space would not have been possible. And it's great to see so many familiar faces. I'm seeing people from my Patients Like Me past, and folks I've gotten to know in the AgeTech and tech space, and colleagues from all sorts of places, and a bunch of new faces as well. So thank you all for trekking out on a cold February night to be here with us. So I've come to realize that a lot of people, even folks who work in the health tech space, haven't necessarily heard the term age tech. So who here has not really heard the term age tech? I see a handful of hands. Fair. So I figure I'll start with some definitions. It's always good to make sure we're sort of on the same plane for starting off. So I really love Andy Miller's definition. Andy Miller's a local age tech leader. He's the head of AARP's Age Tech Collaborative, and this is how he defines age tech. It's where longevity meets technology to help us age better. It is inclusive of all tech, health tech, fintech, smart home, mobility, transportation, femtech, social connection, lifestyle, and I could go on. And it's not just for older people, despite what the name might make you think. Longevity, as Justin has described it to me, is really solutions that directly address the mechanisms and biological processes of aging in order to slow it down so we can live longer and live healthier while we're at it. But before we kick off the panel discussion, which we will get to momentarily with our fabulous set of panelists who will introduce, we have a special guest with us tonight, and I am beyond excited to introduce her. Her name is Nancy Brigham. I'm hoping she'll come up and join us. But Nancy has really been my personal inspiration. She is the one who got me started on this journey and this interest in age tech. She's also my mother-in-law. But it seems especially relevant that in a room full of largely younger people, to have someone with us whose age is over 85 and under 100, because she still wants to maintain an air of mystery. And I'm certainly happy to help with that. But when I think about what aging successfully looks like, she is my shining North Star. Most of Nancy's career was spent as an entrepreneur and an educational researcher, evaluating school programs for studies commissioned by the NSF, the Kellogg Foundation, the Lilly Endowment, as well as university-sponsored studies for Harvard, for Yale, for MIT. Nancy is still working. She published 5 books in her 80s. She is a member of MIT's the MIT Age Lab's 85-plus Lifestyle Leaders Research Panel. She lives independently, she still drives, and she is one of my very favorite people to have a cocktail with. May you get so lucky. But even more impressively, she has kicked off a research project in the last year focused on her peers, women aged 75 and up who live independently in their own homes, and she's going to share a bit about her work and some of the insights that she has gained through that research. But if I could, before she comes up and shares some of her work with us, if I could be so bold as to challenge everyone in this room, let me challenge you with this. Please do not make the mistake of seeing older adults as research subjects, when instead you can make them research partners, because they will certainly unlock insights that younger researchers will miss. So Please introduce yourself after the panel event to Nancy, and I hope you will ask her for advice on how to partner with researchers like her in your own work. Nancy, come on up.
Very nick of time. Okay, well, here I am, an aged person in your midst. I've thought when I came in, if everybody disappeared who was younger than me, I'd be talking to myself. But I want to go to tell you first that I want to thank Kate for inviting me and her awesome introduction, which I can never live up to. But she is also the person who connected me with the MIT Age Lab. I don't know if you're familiar with the mission of the Age Lab. It's to improve the quality of life of older people with bringing in a collaboration of public and private sponsors. They also convene a group called Lifestyle Leaders. It's individuals over the age of 85, I don't know why they chose 85, who meet bi-monthly on Zoom to hear presentations about the work of the lab and its sponsors. For me, the best part of the Lifestyle Leader meetings are the small group discussions, which are to provide feedback on the specific presentation of the day. We hear the presentation, we break into small groups. The participants are opinionated and outspoken. After a presentation that, for some reason I don't understand, included a focus on self-drive cars, one lifestyle leader said, "That's ridiculous. I don't get in my car to knit." So then we proceeded to trash self-drive cars until our small group ended. And it's always too soon. It's always that I want to jump through the screen and say, let's talk more about that. But the sessions leave me frustrated because the topics are so circumcised. Not circumcised, but circumscribed. So I decided that I'd do my own research and find out if I could add to the knowledge base about people who are aging in place and the role of technology in their lives. I enlisted the aid of a friend and colleague whose experience in evaluation has contributed immensely to projects we've conducted together. She too is in the age group that we targeted, people over 75. I didn't go with the 85s. People over 75 living independently and aging in place. We created a standardized interview protocol, and it has two parts. The first section addresses in detail the respondents' everyday activities and how they deal with things like end-of-life issues, finances, living situations. Section 2 is about how they use or choose not to use technology in daily life, and their perspective on getting assistance from a variety of sources, including robots. Robots did not get a good response here. The biggest hurdle we faced in designing the project was who could we interview? Between us, my colleague and I had several friends who were willing to overlook the fact that we had no sponsor, no organizational affiliation, and no funding. The first set of respondents referred us to others, and we ended up conducting 16 interviews between November 2024 and January 2025. We collected a wealth of data. We've only scratched the surface. But as I read over the interviews, kind of cover to cover, I came away with 3 words to describe these kind of amazing women. They are resilient, they are resourceful, and they are resolute. I was struck by the story from a 90-year-old woman who told me about her experience in the ER when she broke her ankle, which must be incredibly painful. The doctor manipulated the ankle and caused her a great deal of pain. When he was done, he patted her on the shoulder and he said, "I love treating old ladies. Old ladies don't scream." And the fact is, we do scream, but we often wonder if anybody hears us. As I said, we have not fully mined the data, but I do have one preliminary finding I think might be valuable here. One question on the protocol is, thinking about the possibility of injury or sudden illness, is that a concern for you? How are you dealing with it? The responses show that 9 respondents, more than half of our 16, have no formal system in place at all. These are not Luddites. All 16 of them insist that they couldn't live without their cell phone. So why did they approach this critical issue so complacently? Again, as I read the responses, there's a certain element of fatalism. I don't worry about it anymore. Whatever will be, will be. I just leave it on the back burner. Whatever happens, I'll deal with it then. I was kind of gobsmacked by the responses to this question, and it made me reflect on my own emergency preparedness. Until now, I felt that I had a good system going. My daughter texts me every night to check that I'm okay. But now, I wonder, what would happen if I were to fall in the kitchen in the morning while making coffee and break my leg? My cell phone at that point is on the bedside table. I've disconnected my landline. And even though I have a smartwatch, I haven't embraced it. It's clunky, and the only thing I really know how to do with it is to tell time. I often leave it on its charger for days. So that leaves me with the challenge, really the reason that I wanted to talk to you tonight. How can we work collaboratively to persuade older people their informal arrangements may not be sufficient to assure their safety? And that indifference, which is what I heard in a lot of interviews, may be harmful. And what is the role of the designers and those who market assistive devices is bringing about change in attitudes and use. Thank you so much.
All right, panelists. Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow, but we'll do our best. Oops. And hopefully not make terrible noises as we go. Oops. Wrong paper. So first off, thanks everybody. It really does strike me that as we're talking about age tech and longevity, it's important that we actually look ahead towards the place we're all going to end up and think about and embrace and engage with that set of voices as well. So I'm really beyond delighted to have Nancy here with us to speak. But let's get to the panel. So we'll start with some introductions and then go through a handful of questions. Quick intros so you know who's speaking. So Kate Brigham. I have spent most of my career as a design, user research, and product management leader for Boston-based growth stage software companies, including Patients Like Me, where I was lucky enough to work with Renée. Then EasyCater, Notarize, Now Proof, and a handful of others. These days I'm focusing my efforts on work in the age tech space as a fractional CPO, consultant, product strategy advisor, stealth mode entrepreneur, convener and community builder, and as an angel investor. Andy.
Thanks for having us, Kate. And Nancy, thank you for delivering those remarks. Reminder that I should be spending more time talking and listening and hearing and figuring out how we can collaborate. Andy Freedman and I work with Assured Allies. For the last 7 years, we've been trying to develop solutions that make what we call successful aging accessible. To us, that means making sure that people have the financial means to be able to live as long as they're going to live, and be able to make those years as healthy as possible, expanding health span, as it's called, but really making sure people can stay independent. And excited to be here today. My path into this space was through personal experience, caring for my grandmother, who just recently passed 6 days shy of 100, but was fiercely independent till the end. Also was not a Luddite, but maybe could have had more of a plan in place. And so it's a personal commitment that I want to make it better for others.
Hi, I'm Renée Deehan. Is my mic working? Yes, okay, awesome. Brilliant, so very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Nancy, that was amazing. And fully agree with patient partners and certainly not subjects. I am a researcher, so I think about our partners a lot. I currently am head of science and artificial intelligence at a company called InsideTracker. And what we do is we take data about an individual, so this could come from blood biomarker data, fitness tracker data, DNA information, and survey data, and we take all of that information and connect it with results from over 7,000 clinical studies that look at different lifestyle interventions. And the outcome of this is a personalized action plan that tells you what are the non-prescription, non-medical things that you could be doing in order to improve your health every day. How that's related to aging and longevity, of course, is the way that I think about it is actually from more of a clinical space, which is preventive health. So we have these quote-unquote diseases of aging. That's a whole different panel as to whether there are diseases of aging or not. But if we think about conditions like diabetes, or even dementia, there are lifestyle aspects to it. So what are the things that we can all be doing and the changes that we can all be making right now in order to stave off those diseases and to increase our health span? So not only just living longer, but of course, living healthier longer, which is really what we want.
So, Naveen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Naveen Sinha. I'm Director of Research Operations at ŌURA. So I'm a physicist by training and experimenter at heart. After getting my PhD in physics, I became really fascinated with quantified self movement and found a way to apply that towards personal health in my job at Fitbit. So I spent 4 years there and then realized there's another aspect of health related to food. So went from there to a startup called Indigo, which was on a mission to improve our food system. Spent 4 years there, and it was around that time that my son was born, and I was spending many sleepless nights. I remembered hearing about ŌURA ring and its sleep tracking abilities, so that's when I took the plunge to buy a ring to learn about my sleep, and also saw a job opening in Boston. So that led to where I am now at the company. It's a really fun job that I have. I lead all our human research studies within the science org, so these can be anything from really small studies with just a few people to explore new technologies, or these large-scale validation studies with hundreds of participants. So it's quite a range, and I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk about the applications of that to longevity and age tech. So thank you, Kate.
Awesome. Well, before we kick off the panel, I think just a show of hands, how many people here have some kind of wearable health tech on right now? Okay, so like maybe 85% of the people. I think it's becoming more and more common. So it's kind of interesting to have people who are using some of that data and technology, some of us using it ourselves to learn about ourselves and sort of figure out what the broader applications are. But I think it's really safe to say for all of us that living longer is really only appealing if we're able to enjoy those extra years, to be in good health, to have enough money to live comfortably, and continue to live with purpose and connection to our families and our friends and our communities. So the impetus behind tonight's conversation is really this: how can we take the learnings and the advances that are coming from the longevity space and make them usable and useful for as many people as possible? So I recently read a great quote by Bertolin Mesko, who's an MD PhD. I hope I'm saying his name right. I may well be butchering it, but he calls himself the medical futurist. And he talks about a concept called practical longevity. And what he means by practical longevity is longevity finally becoming mainstream. So not the research part and the quest for increasing telomeres or cells' lifespans, but the part that's more than just healthy living and involves technologies, supplements, screenings, and habits that maximize our lifespan and our health spans. So with that as our starting point, let's talk about practical longevity solutions and how we can help to create more of them. For the panel, I think a lot of technology solutions, including InsideTracker, where Renée is, and ŌURA, where Naveen is, really straddle kind of longevity tech and age tech. While Assured Allies is sort of maybe what you'd more classically think of as an age tech solution. They're focused on a 50-plus demographic. And Andy, when we were talking last week, I think you shared some really great insights about the business realities of operating in this space. You know, how do you actually incorporate longevity insights in a way that enables your company to make a profit? Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you won't stay in business to do the work that you're doing. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you make longevity insights economically viable.
Sure, happy to. And I think the reality is that science continues to advance very quickly, and there's a lot of incredible innovation out there. One of the challenges that exist, of the many, is like not only how do you make sure people are aware of these solutions, but that they can afford them. Who's paying? And how do you find people to pay for them that see financial return? That's just the only way that this will be effective. I think there's a range of ways to do that. The healthcare industry has been trying very hard to extend benefits to older consumers and to families and family caregiver support. But ultimately, you have to identify the right people who need support. And not only do they need the support, they want the support, right? This is the two sides of the coin. There's a lot of things that I might need to do to improve my health, but if I don't want to do them, they will fail. So the way we deliver such solutions, it's really about using predictive analytics to identify people who are most likely to benefit from specific interventions. That could be providing a health coach to help optimize their bathroom to make it safer from falls. It could be providing support and transportation because they're not making it to medical appointments. And we reach out with those types of messages, but it's ultimately about identifying the people who have that need and getting them to respond to us. Because if we're chasing people who aren't going to act, whoever's paying for it is going to be losing money. So we work a lot with the long-term care insurance industry. And we've been able to create programs that make it cost-effective for companies in that space, companies like CalPERS, who provides long-term care financing to all federal employees in the state of California, to be able to deliver services, but also see a return. That return exists in the form of keeping people independent longer, which we believe is what we all want, but also reducing the cost for the person who's responsible for the cost of home care or long-term care services. And so for us, there's amazing science out there. It's figuring out not only how do we validate that that science will work, but also make sure that we're deploying it in a cost-effective way. And that's been the model that we've seen success with.
Great. Well, I love, for Andy and his company, they're really focused on sort of corporate payer, and insurance is the one who is sort of the payer for both InsideTracker and ŌURA. It's a different market that you're targeting. So I wonder if you could each talk a little bit about who you see as your kind of target audiences, the target audiences for your products. Has it changed over time? And how do you reach them? What are the messages that really resonate? Either of you, feel free to start. Yeah.
Okay, so actually the average age of the user of InsideTracker is somewhere between 45 and 55. And I think that's for a couple of different reasons. Number one, you're hitting middle age and things start happening and all of a sudden you start paying attention to your health. Number two, if you do have children, they might be getting a little bit older, you're gaining some of your own independence back. Three, it's not a cheap product, although we've made it a lot cheaper over the last year, which I think is critically important for adoption. But that's another piece of the puzzle is who can afford this. So that's essentially our target audience. But I would say that InsideTracker actually did start with athletes, and this is a really key aspect here because athletes think about and care about their body and mind a lot more than the rest of us do. And I'm talking about, not, high volume amateur athletes, but also professional athletes. And so those were originally the people that were very interested in using a tool like InsideTracker because they needed to keep their body and mind attuned to whatever their athletic goals were. And I think it's very interesting and important to think about how do we translate some of that just to the every person, right? Not necessarily somebody who's trying to run a 2:15 marathon, but just me at 48 just trying to hang on.
Excellent. Naveen?
Yeah, I'd say ŌURA has somewhat similar trajectory to InsideTracker. So I first heard about ŌURA roughly 10 years ago when it was a Kickstarter campaign, and it was really, to me, it seemed appealing more to biohackers and health optimizers. But since then, it's really gained adoption to be really for everyone, and a lot of people over 65 use them. My mom recently got one and loves it, and actually, people over 65 are some of our most engaged members. So it's really seeing much wider adoption, and I think, it's part of a trend of people wanting to know more about their health as they move through life.
Got it. So you both kind of started to touch on this, but I think, this idea of practical longevity and really thinking about who do you see in this space, yourselves and your companies included, who are creating real tangible benefits and value, and who are they creating that sort of value for versus kind of what feels like hype? I'd love for all three of you to touch on it. So anybody want to start?
I can start.
Great.
So going back to the history of ŌURA, it began really focused on sleep. But since then, it's expanded to include other types of health, including stress, heart health, women's health, and most recently metabolic health. So trying to get like a more holistic view of people's life. And I think in each of those areas, it offers really tangible benefits. I think many people, including myself, are somewhat dismayed to find the negative effect that alcohol has on sleep. But I think you've seen the rise of zero-proof cocktails and non-alcoholic beer, and I think that could be related. It's also given people the ability to see patterns in their stress throughout the day through our daytime stress feature to help manage that and understand that stress isn't bad, but it's something that you need to balance out with recovery. And I think that lastly is the other example I'll give is the heart health feature for cardiovascular age. I saw benefits myself when I was training for a half marathon. I could see my cardiovascular age go down, my heart getting healthier. So it was really motivating to see that change. So I think in each of those areas of health, ŌURA offers feedback into people and to what's working and how they can make positive steps towards improving their health.
For us, we think about technology a little bit different. I think ultimately, good tech should be easy to use and it should work. So we have about 200 plus healthy actions or interventions that we make available to the end consumer, the people we serve. And ultimately, the vast majority are not involving what we would define in this room maybe as technology. It's a long stem shoehorn that makes it easier to get my shoes on. Or it's a grab bar for your car called the handy bar, which makes it easier if you're kind of getting it out of your car. Or something that's going to make it easier to get off the couch. This is technology. It works. And what we find is that most people we introduce these solutions to didn't know they existed. It's not that they don't want to use them. It's wow, that's cool. It's easy. I don't have to press any buttons. And so we focus on that, and we see a lot of great results. We are watching very closely, what is happening on the cool technology side. Robots, which came up earlier, is a good example. I'm not surprised that people didn't like robots. Actually, Japan did a massive study where they were providing robots into homes. And what they found is that it didn't really solve a problem. It didn't reduce the cost of the problem of caring for older consumers. Usage ended up waning. It kind of got old and stale. We've actually had a company, I don't know if anyone remembers a company called Jibo, which was based in Boston. I think they were seeing traction in the older demographic and nursing homes, if I believe, but it was just too expensive and it wasn't delivering return. So our focus on technology is maybe dumb tech, but it's the stuff that we think works, and we really want to see the science behind smart tech because we want more of that to be in the solutions for our consumers.
That's great. Okay, so you mentioned hype. Hype is one of my favorite things to talk about because there's a lot of it out there. One of the things that I say this about InsideTracker, and by the way, I'm not going to get rich from this company. But one of the things that I really love I mean, maybe, but probably not. I am not the CEO and I'm not a founder. But one of the things that I absolutely love is that I am a person that suffers from decision fatigue, right? So probably many of us out there do. I have to make decisions for a lot of people that I do not want to make decisions for all the time, all day long, and by 6 p.m. I'm quite tired. And the last thing that I want is my, InsideTracker thing that I am paying for to, make me make some more decisions. But one of the things that I find very confusing is you go onto Instagram and there are so many influencers that are telling you just wild things to do. Brian Johnson's a great example. I mean, that's just one. And how do you cut through all of that noise and actually get to the signal? Because a lot of these influencers, they actually don't have a degree in nutrition or exercise physiology or biology. They're not data scientists. They are, frankly, just amateurs that might be dabbling along in their own world, and that's really wonderful, and they have a very big microphone. This translates to other aspects of our lives, including politics, of course, but it's a real challenge, right? So how do you go onto a platform like Instagram and actually figure out what you're supposed to do? And I'm a scientist, right? I'm a biologist. I want all of my decisions to be based on evidence, in terms of my health, right? And so actually that is what I like about InsideTracker, is that it is cutting through the hype. We prescribe very boring things for you to do. We're asking you to change habits. And maybe the easiest thing that you could do is take a supplement, but a lot of other things are really hard, like how do you change your sleep, right? We were just talking about this. I love ŌURA, have been working on my sleep for literally 5 years, and I still haven't hit 8 hours a night. So that to me is, how do we just smartly use evidence and science and this vast amount of clinical research that we have to really help people make the right decisions throughout the day and reduce that fatigue. And rant.
I love that. No, rant away. I think my goal really here is to just sort of have some real honest, transparent conversations and not just sort of marketing speak. So I love that you guys are sharing the dumb tech and the, let's cut through the marketing and actually figure out what the evidence is. On that note, I think, what are some developments in your fields that you're really excited about? What do you see that's sort of impacting your current work and your company's work that kind of, has you excited and really looking forward? Anybody?
Well, I'll say AI first, and then I'll move on. And I'll let them talk about the cool AI stuff they're doing. I think for me, as I'm watching, I think we do have a new administration, and my hope is that there's a focus on solving this problem together. 2025 is supposed to be the year that the White House has a conference on aging. They do it every 10 years. I really hope it happens, and I hope there's a substantive agenda that comes in and kind of develop solutions. And we're not slashing kind of home and community-based services that are critical to not only older consumers, but also to the caregivers that support them. So I am nervous about what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that there's enough data and science that's going to push that stuff forward. I think we'll all talk about AI and what our companies are doing. To me, just like the influencers, many are turning to ChatGPT to solve my medical problem. And I think we need to have a very, very careful eye of how we are using that in our own lives and as companies. The ethics of using AI is going to be something to watch. And so that's something we're navigating as we make recommendations. How are we vetting and making sure that anything we put out there we would do for ourselves or for our own family? That's kind of a rule of thumb that we're trying to apply.
Renée or Naveen?
I'll talk more about AI.
Awesome.
I think it's the thing I'm really excited about. At Fitbit, I started my career in data science, and it was somewhat going from that transition from business intelligence to data science, and then there's been other waves of machine learning, deep learning, and now AI. And I think ŌURA has always been at the forefront of those advances, using the latest types of computational technologies for automatic activity detection and the way that we look at sleep stages. And one of the recent products I'm really excited about is called ŌURA Advisor, so you can chat with your ŌURA data and ask it questions. And I think that's really powerful because when I was in grad school, I was using Python scripts and other scientific tools to look at my ŌURA data, but now I can bypass that and just like go to the questions directly. So I think that opens up that ability to experiment to a much wider audience just by being able to talk with your data.
AI, sorry, I'm gonna say it. And I say that with like a hard eye roll as well as enthusiasm. AI also hype, very hyped, but I love it. My entire career has been spent in artificial intelligence. And so, you know, a big part of these systems that we use and build, for example, to give people recommendations at InsideTracker, and I've done this in personalized medicine at different companies, is called knowledge representation and reasoning. It's a type of general AI, and it strives to think like an expert would. How would a health coach, you know, give you this advice? How would a doctor give you this advice? Those types of systems. And they are built with a lot of manual work and care because they are very important, because they really are trying to replicate the brain of an expert. So those have been around since like the 50s and the 60s, so this is not new technology at all, but I hope it's kind of the new AI that people talk about again. Of course, LLMs are the hotness right now, and I am, you know, despite all of my cynicism, I am excited about them when they are used in the right way. So I think that that's probably what I'm most excited. I love the way you said it, which is you can have a conversation with your data, because we're collecting a lot of data right now, and so how do we simplify that? So I think being able to have a conversation with your data and kind of large bodies of knowledge is a really great way to, you know, I don't have to read 1,200 clinical studies. I can get summaries. And hopefully those summaries are right. And we've, you know, but that's what our jobs are, right? Is our jobs as kind of the subject matter experts are to make these tools as smart and as error-free as possible. So.
I love that. I think, you know, the things that I have seen and been really excited about with generative AI are just how it opens doors to access to doing things that were really hard to do before, and it speeds things up, and I think that's exciting. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how we make some of these things increasingly more accessible and available to a broader set of people, not just the worried well, not just the athletes and the tech bros who have a lot of money. What things are you seeing that kind of help make it available more broadly?
I can jump in with an example. With ŌURA, we've partnered with Essence, which is a Medicare Plus program, and through the program, participants can get an ŌURA ring and membership for free, and opt in to share their data with providers. So I think that really opens up access for a lot of people who are over 65. So I think that's one way that we're making progress in that area. Also, recently enabled ŌURA to be purchased using FSA or HSA funds, so I think that reduces the cost burden for a lot of people. And yeah, we're always looking for ways to take sensors that originally were only able to be used for like athletes and elite performers and make those available to a much wider audience. So yeah, it's a part and parcel of what we do.
Great.
I think just prove it. Like whatever you're building out there, like prove that it works. Like it obviously has to solve a problem for the user, make their life better, safer, healthier, but it also has to save money for whoever is paying for it. So for us, I think we very much liken the way we approached our deployment in the long-term care insurance industry as like a clinical trial. We kind of did it in a very scientific way. We created a randomized control group, and we had half the population get our program and half didn't. And we measured it over 4 years. And we were able to see that we actually delivered 10% savings to the payer. Now, being able to take that data and now say, let's apply it elsewhere, is evidence, because otherwise I think there's going to be a real risk that things won't be accessible, and there will be great tests that come out that someone's going to pay $500 for and use and then stop using, and it won't have enough longevity to be able to kind of stick around and be a viable business. So I'd say whatever you're doing, make sure you're really putting the time and effort into measuring, because that's going to make your investors happy, it's going to make you happy, it's going to make your customers happy, and we'll develop like sustainable businesses.
To piggyback on measurement, could not agree more. So one of the things that we found in our cohort of InsideTracker users is that for people who had HbA1c levels in the diabetic range, that over time they were able to actually drop those A1C levels into the pre-diabetic range. So just with that data alone, we've been able to have, for example, conversations with a state government that has, this particular state has a very big diabetes problem. They spend $1 billion a year on diabetes, and they are interested in dropping the A1C level of their constituents. But I think this is really important because for me, I can't think about I think about all of this in our for-profit world, but also none of it can be divorced from policy. And there are also very simple things that I wish that state and federal governments would just make easier for all of us. So for example, if you live in an area where you can't just go outside and take a walk, how do we get walkable areas for you? How do we make sure that kids who don't have access to really great food have free breakfast and lunch? I mean, these are very simple things that have nothing to do with technology necessarily, but can just be wildly important and impactful at kind of a state or a federal level. So I don't know, I'm very interested in seeing how we can continue to lower the age of any technology that does help, but also just come at this with practical solutions.
I love that. I think technology is not a panacea. It's not a magic pill. And so really thinking about and talking about all of the different parties and characters that need to play a role to make some of these changes is a great point. So last question before we open it up to the audience. Looking ahead, a year, 5 years, 10 years, what do you see as some exciting new opportunities that the average consumer will be able to take advantage of, and what's going to still be hard to do in 5 or 10 years? Renee, you want to go first?
No.
She's not going first. Andy, how about you?
Sure.
Excellent.
I recently read that less than 10% of homes are considered age-friendly. Don't ask me to define exactly what that means. And 90% of people want to stay in their homes. There feels like there's an issue there. And so my hope in the next 5-10 years is that we actually start paying attention because end of the day, this is actually a societal issue that we don't have the finances to pay for everyone to get the care they need, and people want to stay in their homes. So that feels like a solvable challenge. So my hope is that people will come together. People will be able to access programs that already exist. Check out your community center, whether you're young or old, it doesn't matter, there's great things happening. My mom was learning Kanaska, is that the game, yesterday? She was raving about it. I'll learn and play with her. So I hope we can solve some of those challenges. They're practical. I think they can come together. I think state, federal, we can all pay for it, and innovators can kind of play a part in that as well.
Great. Naveen or Renee, anything to add?
I can go next. I think the short-term focus is a lot on the individual, and a lot of sensors like ŌURA providing a window into people's health and giving insights that are private, personalized, and proactive, so you can learn about issues early on and take preventive actions. But I think to Renee's point, it's not just up to the individual. I think really changing the system is necessary. So I think that's my hope for the longer term, is that smart rings like ŌURA and Tesla from InsideTracker and all these other new tools that we're inventing become part of the healthcare system and can help things at a societal level.
I really want the robots. I actually think I want the robots.
You can pay for them.
I know. I actually think that when if I am living alone, I may want the company, and at that point, I hope that they're advanced enough that I forget that they're robots. But I think actually loneliness is a really interesting kind of thing to talk about. But I also, my daughter is dyslexic. So she does not love to read and type things, and so if I think about adaptability in her world, it comes with conversation, actually. She does all of her thought and learning through conversation. So I am really excited about any type of technology that enables that, right? Because she doesn't want to type, she doesn't want to read, she wants to talk. And we're already getting much better at that, right? I mean, with the Alexa but I don't know. So I think that there is a role for robots in there, company robots.
Great. Okay, we have, I think, another 5 minutes. So if anyone in the audience has questions for anyone on the panel, please feel free. Yeah.
You each talked about the financial side of things and making these devices and everything more accessible. Have you started to think about the next level of like Web3 or tokenization, or somehow actually paying the participants and gamifying this? Like, can I earn some reward for getting my sleep hours up or my heart rate variability down?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody want to answer that and just repeat the question in case anyone didn't hear?
I can. We're doing some of that, so I can. So the question was like paying users to participate in these programs to help solve the financial problem. So the way we're approaching that is we are introducing new ways to pay for long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance industry was very popular in the 80s or 90s and 2000s, and then all the companies that sold those policies started going bankrupt and they don't sell them anymore and you can't buy them anymore. And so we're trying to change that. And one of the ways we're doing that is by incentivizing people to participate and take healthy actions and actually rewarding them for participation. So if you take these steps, then we will pay you in the form of additional coverage or care. John Hancock has a partnership with a company called Vitality. They've been doing that for a few years on the life insurance side. I think those programs, and if you actually look at Vitality in their origin country of South Africa, it is affecting every part of your life. Like it's your health insurance, it's your grocery store rewards program, it's everything. So it is taking your data and monetizing that, but ultimately with the interest of making you cheaper to society. So I think there's a lot that could be done there.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, I think one of the types of data that we like to be able to collect is what is your behavior. But you should be rewarded for giving us data in some way, shape, or form. There has to be some type of give back. We thought about this a lot of patients like me. So absolutely kind of trying to gamify it is definitely something we're thinking about. No question. But yes, if you don't know what the product is you. So you should demand to get something back for that. Also, of course, we do work with things like blood data, right? So we have also talked about allowing users to slurp in, data from their EHRs and things like that to really kind of expand the profile. But that also should be rewarded as well.
I love that the product is you. Just so we can try to get a handful more questions. We can let, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious, Andy, you made an insightful comment about the kind of, there may be a lot of people who need to, but we have to match up those that want to. And I'm curious, actually, particularly with ŌURA and InsideTracker, as you move up that adoption curve and you think about providing it through insurance companies or other places where people haven't explicitly sought it out as like a lifestyle change, what do you see as the on-ramps to kind of interest in longevity or health change that are maybe not the kind of people who are psyched about talking to the data, but maybe are kind of still a little wary? Like, where are those early interventions that may provide that hook?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think the UX team at ŌURA puts a lot of thought in the onboarding process and guiding people through that. And I think one of the things that resonates with a lot of people is that it's a very empathic and respectful tone that we take with our members. So it's not like you're being told orders of what to do, but you really feel like you have a companion on the process. So I'd say that's like one way that we're trying to bring people on board into that longevity journey.
I'd say for InsideTracker too, there does have to be some level of event, right? You have to be afraid of something. So maybe your parent passed away. Maybe you finally went to the doctor and the news was as bad as you had expected, right? So it's typically those folks who are outside of that tweaker tracker, I love my devices type. But yeah, there has to be an emotional hook.
Great. Other questions? Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being here. I thought you were all mostly, innovative, forward-thinking, early adopters as it may be. What do you think the largest lever is going to be that we can pull, whether it's top-down government or insurance, being able to help kind of cross the chasm, so to speak, and get more people aware of this? Because the more I get my loop, for example, the more I get excited. And is there something that can be pulled to help really push this into more mainstream adoption that you guys are working on or thinking of?
I can take on part of that. So initially, you buy ŌURA through an online store, but more recently, we've started to expand into Best Buy and Target and be sold on Amazon. So I think that reaches like a much wider audience. I think there's a surprisingly large fraction of the country that lives within like a short distance of one of those retail stores, and I think that allows us to become a lot more accessible.
I'll go back to the earlier point. I think if you measure it and it works, other people will pay for it if it solves their problem. So if ŌURA is proving itself to improve sleep, and sleep correlates to extended health span, like other companies will pay for it, and that might solve the excitement, the awareness problem, and the access problem. So I'm sure ŌURA is doing all sorts of studies, and they're probably going to grow that distribution even more. But that's what I would do.
Great. I think we've got time for one more question.
Right. You were talking about both proving the outcome and saving money as a way to get adoption going throughout the world. The challenge working in the space for a long time, big population studies over 10 years are very expensive to prove your outcome. While nobody wants to just limit interventions, the interventions I haven't heard talked about are functional interventions to help reduce morbidity and keep people in their homes. So we haven't been talking about assistive devices around the home to help them get around easier, not necessarily robots, but pervasive technology that isn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to actively engage with it. It's looking out for you pervasively in the environment and triggering alerts. And focusing on the most at-risk folks, an outcome is much closer in. You have people you think is going to be in a nursing home in 6 months, you can bend the curve by 5 people, there you go. There's your proof, there's your savings, and they can keep going forward. It's hard to do that. So how have you addressed that? We have all these dual initiatives for at-risk seniors right now. The states are crying for it. MA plans are developing, DSNP plans and everything else. Where is the path in through that population?
If I wasn't, so we tried to do that very thing. When I refer to dumb tech, that is some of the durable medical equipment you described. We used that, we structured a program, we measured it, we got results in about 2 years. So it wasn't 10, it was 2. We did focus on that high-risk population who are at, we call them rising risk population, who are kind of nearing an event. And that's where we deployed all of our focus and effort. So I think that world is changing. I can't say that with robots, like that's going to be the same. You might need longer studies. But I think you have to kind of find the right partner who's like, I want to solve this, I'll fund a program, and get yourself going now, because this problem's only going to get worse.
Great. So I think it's 7:30, maybe and change. We'll pause here. We've got another half hour. We have a hard stop at 8. We need to all sort of be gone and disappear at 8. The security guard's off duty at that point, and that's the end of us gathering here. So ask that everybody just sort of keep an eye out for that. But please have some more food, drink. I hope you'll have a chance to talk more with folks you maybe didn't get a chance to talk to earlier. And a huge thank you to our panelists. This was a really great conversation. And thanks to Nancy.